It is 10:12 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. It is the 26th day of August, 2026, and this is episode 1380 of Bitcoin And. With me, your host, David Bennett, bringing you all the news you can use about Bitcoin and more from around the world. All we are is dust in the wind. According to Kansas, if you haven't ever really heard that song, you must live in a cave, because that song has been one of the most overplayed songs on the face of the planet, right next to Stairway to Heaven. Yet today's first and top story is about dust. Kraken and their customers got dusted with sanctioned Satoshis. I wonder what that's going to do. We're going to find out about that and a lot more. Like Roman Storm, his retrial has been delayed. The Dallas Fed is sounding the alarm bells about tokenized deposits. It seems that they're protecting their little banker buddies. And speaking of banks, there's a banking group that plans to roll out a nationwide blockchain. as if that's going to do anything. It's really more for, a humorous relief from the rest of the news. Then in the second part of the show, do you want to learn about crypto? Well, you're not going to be doing it in college. Well, not as much as in college as online, and of course therein lies the danger. We'll get to that one. And researchers have shrunk an AI model, and it seemed to actually make it smarter. We'll find out about that one. And then the Human Rights Foundation has announced support for 16 projects. And one class of the projects surprised me. Not terribly surprised me, but I was like, oh, sweet, dude. So Kraken and dust. It's a dust storm, baby. Kraken says dust attack from sanctioned HTX wallet locked out customers. Bitcoin Magazine, Matthew DeSalvo on the dangers of dusting. Crypto exchange Kraken clients were reportedly locked out of their accounts after receiving tiny, itty-bitty amounts of sanctioned digital coins. In a statement to Bitcoin Magazine, Kraken said the coins were transferred in what is known as a dust attack, where small quantities of a cryptocurrency is sent to numerous wallet addresses to track and de-anonymize them. Kraken said the aim of the transactions was to trigger compliance checks by spreading sanctioned funds onto other platforms. Bloomberg first reported the news. Quote, "We don't know who is behind these attacks, but they likely expect that if sanctioned funds land in a client accounts, it triggers a full account lock, causing operational disruption for a large number of users," a Kraken spokesperson said. The spokesperson then added that its customers were only briefly locked out of their accounts, but its compliance teams mobilized quickly to restore access while continuing to hold the sanctioned funds as required. Quote, "We are working with authorities to ensure that these attacks don't have their intended impact," the statement added. A total of 12,000 such transfers were sent from the wallet to addresses linked to Kraken between this month, Bloomberg reported, citing Arkham Intelligence. Arkham identified the wallet as linked to HTX based on addresses the exchange had publicly disclosed as part of its proof of reserves. Chinese exchange HTX, formerly known as Huobi, is one of the world's largest crypto exchanges. The European Union sanctioned it in July because it has, according to European authorities, helped the Russians evade sanctions. Quote, "Recent dust attacks from HTX-owned wallets appeared to be an attempt to spread UK and EU sanctioned funds to other platforms in order to discredit the broader industry," the Kraken spokesperson continued. Dusting has been happening for years. Back in 2022, some Some person sent celebrities Ethereum from a Tornado Cash wallet one day after the U.S. Treasury Department sanctioned the coin mixing app used by North Korean state-sponsored hacking groups. Celebrities targeted in the 2022 dusting attack included comedian Jimmy Fallon, YouTuber Logan Paul, and Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong. The Fed said that they wouldn't prosecute the celebrities hit with sanctioned crypto. All right, there's a couple of things that I want to point out. That's the end of the article. One, and I want to get to this quick, Kraken customers. I am not a Kraken customer, right? I think I've used them once to do one particular trade and never logged back into my account at all. All right, so I don't really know the behind the scenes mechanics of how Kraken works. But what I find interesting is that somehow this dusting attack was able to send sanctioned coins, and I don't know if they actually said it was Bitcoin or just some shit coin. I can't really see. But my point is that I was under the presumption that the wallet would have to the wallet of Kraken would be the one to pick up the dusting attack. I was unaware, and I'm still kind of like questioning the efficacy of this story, because I'm not certain that Kraken customers have their own crypto wallet address. I was thinking it was more like Coinbase, where there's a couple of master wallets that Coinbase holds, and they collectively hold all of the funds that are held by the particular customers. If this is not the case for Kraken, and I'm getting this wrong, please let me know, but it seems like a lot of back-end work for the Kraken crew to provide a separate wallet address and lock that to a particular client's account, rather than just having an account and all the funds are held in some kind of master wallet by Kraken. So I've got questions about exactly how this dusting attack was working. Because honestly, the only way that it could really do this is if each individual Kraken customer is, upon, setting up your account and, giving your KYC, AML information and taking pictures of your driver's license and passport and all that shit, that somehow during that setup process, that an individual wallet is spun up with its own seed phrases and its own private keys and public keys, and all that shit is basically baked into your account at the time of account setup with Kraken. That's the only way this kind of dusting attack would actually work. And then you start having to ask the question, well, how would anybody know what the public address is of these accounts? If there were accounts that actually didn't do any trading, you just you got a Kraken account simply because that's where you hold your Bitcoin, or which, by the way, you might not want to do that. I know we're coming off the cold card thing, and maybe you do want to do that. I think we need to let some more water pass under that bridge before we start talking about self-custody again. In either event, see what my problem is? Because if there is a master wallet, then how the hell would you know? I don't know. The whole thing seems very, very confusing. But let's take it for face value and say, yeah, that's what happened. Somehow or another, all these wallet addresses, public addresses got leaked, and somebody could send, malicious coins, malicious dust to all these things. And that caused lockout periods because, hey, you received these coins and they were sanctioned coins. So therefore you start recognizing why AML and KYC custody is so bad. And maybe enough water has passed under the CoinKite bridge. This is why you custody your own coins. I know we live in a different kind of environment because of the assholes over at CoinKite, but hey, we do live here. However, see what happens? Maybe this dusting attack is connected to the fact that a whole bunch of people moved all of their sovereignly held Bitcoin over into exchanges. And oh, my have mercy, here comes the dusting attack that causes account lockout. This is why I did not send any of my coins over to Coinbase or Kraken or some exchange to hold. I just moved it to a different hardware wallet from a different manufacturer. And I will be talking about them soon enough. But be that as it may, just understand there are forces in the world that absolutely have nothing better to do with their time than to do things like this. They don't want to get married. They don't want to fall in love with a pretty girl. They don't want to go fishing. They don't want to have kids. They don't want to go on vacations and appreciate the beauty of the mountains and the forests and the soil and all the shit that I love. No. They just want to hang out, I guess, in a room full of fucking fluorescent lights, sitting in front of a goddamn computer screen, fucking up other people's lives. And people wonder, why are you a little miffed about the human species there, Mr. Bennett? Well, because of shit like this. And then there's Roman Storm, which isn't making me all that much more happy. Tornado Cash developer Roman Storm's retrial has been delayed until April of 2027. Ezra Reguera, Cointelegraph, the retrial of Tornado Cash co-founder and developer Roman Storm has been postponed from October 26, 2026 to April 26, 2027, as a federal judge weighs his motion for acquittal. U.S. District Judge Catherine Polk-Fila said in a Tuesday order that the retrial would be adjourned in light of Storm's pending motion and his related request for a continuance. Storm's lawyers requested the delay on August the 3rd, saying they needed at least 90 days after the court rules on the acquittal motion to prepare for another trial. Prosecutors opposed an adjournment, according to the filing. In March, prosecutors asked the court to schedule an October retrial on 2 charges after jurors failed to reach unanimous verdicts on either count. The charges were conspiracy to commit money laundering and conspiracy to violate U.S. sanctions. A Manhattan jury convicted Storm in April 2025 of conspiring to operate an unlicensed money transmitting business, an offense carrying up to 5 years in prison. Storm subsequently asked the court to acquit him on all 3 charges, arguing prosecutors failed to prove that he intended to help criminals misuse Tornado Cash. Quote, "My acquittal motion is still sitting there undecided. I honestly don't know when this ends," Storm said Tuesday on X. Makes me wonder how he got a hold of something that he could post on Twitter, because you would think that the federal penitentiary system wouldn't want that to occur. It doesn't really matter. His trial's been postponed. Judge is considering the whole thing. It's nice that the judge is at least taking time to look at the motion for acquittal, but I don't know. The fact that he can be retried on counts that, that the jury was unable to come to a conclusion on and to become unanimous upon, I don't know. It seems like double jeopardy to me. And if you don't know, double jeopardy is where you can't be retried on the same charges twice. So I can only presume that there's some kind of nefarious language in double jeopardy speak that says, well, just because a jury was unable to unanimously decide on a particular count doesn't mean that count automatically means guilty or not guilty. It just means that it's kind of like not being done nothing's going to be done with it. So it's just going to get dropped. So I guess that's the only way that it's not double jeopardy. But other than that, man, this sounds like double jeopardy. I'm not sure how that works. I got a couple of lawyer friends and I'll ask them about it, but it's probably going to boil down to, well, that double jeopardy doesn't count unless you actually are found not guilty on a charge, or guilty on a charge and somebody wants to try you again on that same charge because they want to get see if they can get you like death instead of life in prison or something like that. You can't be charged twice, right? You just, I mean, it's like if I murder someone, I'm caught red-handed in the act. The person's dead. They saw me actually stab the person, and that person is dead, and the cops actually saw it with their own eyes, and they arrest me on the spot, and they find me guilty of murder in the first degree, and I get life in prison. A prosecutor can't retry me on that same charge to try to get me death because they didn't think that the punishment was appropriate. Right? Same thing. If I killed or if somebody thought I killed somebody and they arrested me and I was found not guilty, I can never be tried for that charge of murder ever again in my life, because that would be double jeopardy and that shit's not allowed. How this shit is working is beyond me. So if you're a lawyer out there and you know how this works, why that they can retry him even though a jury basically was unable to become unanimous on a couple of charges, please, for the love of God, tell me. Meanwhile, we're going down to Dallas. The Dallas Fed warns tokenized deposits could strip $700 billion from U.S. banks' lending capacity. Oh, so we're going to be talking about Clarity. This is something to do with Clarity, I'm pretty sure. Francisco Rodriguez, CoinDesk. Tokenized deposits could reduce U.S. banks' capacity to hold long-term interest rate risk by about $700 billion if they make depositors 10% more sensitive to rates. Wow, okay. That's according to estimates from two Dallas Fed economists. A separate scenario found that if tokenization causes deposits to leave banks 10% sooner, banks could lose about $580 billion of capacity to absorb the interest rate risk of long-term loans and securities, the economists estimated. The calculations assume deposits remain at a bank for an average of 4 years. That makes the products that banks are developing as regulated alternatives to stablecoins a potential constraint on their ability to fund long-term loans. The figures measure how much long-term interest rate exposure banks could support if tokenization makes deposits easier to move and less reliable as a source of funding for loans. Rosie Levy and Srini Ramaswamy, the economists, estimated that other deposits, excluding large time deposits, support about $5.8 trillion or 80% of the banking system's roughly $7 trillion long-term interest rate exposure. Quote, instant settlement would allow deposit holders who prioritize yield to switch banks almost instantaneously, Levy and Ramaswamy noted. Tokenized deposits place commercial bank money on a blockchain, enabling programmable payments and real-time settlement while keeping funds inside the regulated banking system. However, these features could weaken the frictions that make deposits sticky. Depositors seeking higher yield could move money between banks almost instantaneously. Smart contracts and agentic AI could theoretically automate that process, switching deposits without requiring the holder to take any direct action at all. Banks could respond by paying higher interest rates to retain deposits, holding more reserves and treasuries, or relying more heavily on term debt. If they use that more expensive debt to maintain their existing lending, it would likely adversely impact the cost of credit for consumers and businesses. Evidence from Brazil offers an early comparison. A 2025 study of the country's instant payment network PIX, PIX, found that heavier usage of the system increased banks' holdings of liquid assets, particularly government bonds, while reducing credit intermediation. Banks also increased the share of subprime loans in their remaining loan books as they sought higher returns. Tokenized deposits remain at an early stage and are generally difficult to transfer between issuers. The clearinghouse and banks, including Bank of America, Citi, and Wells Fargo, are developing an interoperable network designed to support cross-bank clearing, automated workflows, and 24/7 settlement. So what's being said here? Apparently, if we allow depositors and their tokenized deposits to interoperate between banks so that I can just say, hey, I'm leaving Citibank and I'm going to Wells Fargo. I don't even have to do it myself. I'm going to let my AI agent do it. And my AI agent basically told me, hey, you're going to get a better interest rate if you go over to Wells Fargo. So Citibank loses depositors. All of a sudden, the loans that they've made technically against their deposits, but you and I both know that's all bullshit, but technically against their deposits, now they don't have really the backing for those loans. Okay, that's one part. The other part is, well, now we have, oh my God forbid, competition between banks. And banks that don't want to lose their backing for the loans that they're making, again, technically, we're not printing money. Technically, we're making loans against the deposits of the bank, which is what was supposed to happen. But we all know that that's bullshit, where they just print the money right there out of thin air. But hey, let's just keep it simple here. If there's competition amongst banks and AI agents that are basically sitting there going, hey, I've switched your banks 4 times this month because I keep finding better rates. I keep finding better yields. That's why I took you from Citi to Wells Fargo to JP Morgan to, I don't know, Chase Manhattan, whatever, right? However that works. Because I'm able to keep finding higher and higher interest rates. And then you start getting into a situation where the AI agent maybe makes decisions like, yeah, well, there's a slightly higher interest rate over at this other bank. However, it's not high enough for me to move this particular set of money yet one more time. And all of a sudden, you start getting higher interest rates locked in for depositors. They get better and better yields, right? Until we start reaching a plateau. What does that do to the bond market yields? Yeah, what do mortgages look like? And we know that that's really, kind of the 10-year and 30-year treasury bonds that kind of dictate those interest rates. But still, this is all honestly, it's kind of all part of the bond market, right? So it's an interesting facet here. Now, the part of the news story that kind of, I think, is upfront and in your face is, oh my God, these banks are scared. They're terrified of tokenized deposits because this is going to happen and they're going to end up having to pay more yield and they're going to get, I don't know, less bonus money for their executives, whatever. The whole point of the story was basically, oh my God, the banks could, lose all this money. They could lose their deposits, except we come to find out that no, what's really going to happen is that banks are actually going to have to start competing with each other again, like they used to back in the day, before we destroyed all the money. And it's going to make interest rates go higher across the board. Bonds are already headed that direction. Banks are going to be next. So the very thing that all the bank lobbyists were saying that stablecoins were going to destroy doesn't actually seem to be as true as what they said. Now they're worried about each other. This is an interesting time to be alive in economics, I guarantee it. But it still makes me feel a little dirty, which is why I'm friends with Soap Miner, and I'm out of soap. Went through my last bar. Wife told me last night, I was getting into bed. She goes, you need to order more soap. I was like, what? She's like, we're out of soap. We're out of hand soap. We need hand soap. We're out. I'm like, fuck. Okay. So Soap Miner at soapminer.com just now became my best friend all over again with his handmade tallow soap. That's right. Handmade tallow soap. What is it? It's soap. What's it made from? Tallow. 100% grass-fed beef tallow, in fact, and sodium hydroxide and distilled water. That's his base ingredient for making some of the best soap I've ever had the pleasure of looking at, right? It's just, his soap is amazing. He's got cedarwood tallow soap, rosemary tallow soap. He's got orange and clove. He's got lemongrass. He's got goat's milk, pine tar, lavender, tea tree, peppermint. and redacted, as well as Earl Grey tallow soap, which I'm definitely going to get some on this next order. This soap is amazing soap. It lasts freaking forever. And if you keep the soap out of water, and I've seen people do this. You look in their soap dish and there's like the bar of soap sitting in water. Don't do that to your soap, especially when you're paying what you're paying for this soap. And that way it will last almost like a month and a half. I got a family of 4. One single bar of Soap Miners soap lasts my family of 4 a month and a half. Right? Because we don't let it sit in water. We don't let it get all mushy. It's beautiful, beautiful soap. It smells wonderful. And if you don't like scented soap, he's got you covered, man. He's got you covered with Rough Cut Tallow soap. Essentially, it's the same base soap with nothing else in it. There's no colored sand. There's no flavor. Well, not flavoring. There's no scent. It's just pure 100% soap. And again, this is 100% grass-fed beef tallow. That's the fat part of the soap that you want. All right, so go to soapminer.com. That's soapminer.com. Once again, soapminer.com, and make damn sure you use code Bitcoin, and that way you will get 10% off of your entire purchase, and it allows SoapMiner to know that I made him a sale here on the Circle P, on the Bitcoin Dan podcast. It's where I bring plebs just like you with goods and services to other plebs just like you who want to buy those goods and services, but you will be buying it in Bitcoin, because if you're not selling it in Bitcoin, you're not in the Circle P. That's soapminer.com. Go to soapminer.com. Coupon code BitcoinAnd. Okay, staying with banks. U.S. State Banking Group plans nationwide blockchain network for 2027. Ezra Reguera for Cointelegraph. 39 U.S. state banking associations have formed the BankChain Alliance to build a nationwide industry-owned blockchain network for banks, targeting a 2027 launch. Might I pause to say, you're too late. On Tuesday, the Alliance announced that the network intends to support smart payment tools, tokenized deposits, stablecoins, and automated settlement. BankChain said it plans for the network to be interoperable with other blockchains, and said it was selecting a technology partner. Oh boy. The participating associations represent thousands of financial institutions across the U.S. BankChain said it will invite banks nationwide to take ownership of stakes, whatever the hell that means. However, the announcement did not mention individual banks that have committed to joining, nor did they disclose how the network will be governed or even funded. BankChain joins several U.S. bank-led networks announced for advance since late 2025, spanning major regional and community lenders, building shared infrastructure for moving deposits and payments on chain within the regulated banking system. And we talked a little bit about that earlier. Cointelegraph reached out to BankChain for more information. Not a shred of a phone call. In June, the clearinghouse announced an on-chain money initiative supported by JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Citi, BNY, and Wells Fargo. The proposed network would clear and settle tokenized deposits between banks and connect blockchain activity with its existing payment systems. Unlike independently issued stablecoins, tokenized deposits represent claims on individual banks and retain their treatment as commercial bank money. The structure allows banks to offer programmable and round-the-clock transfers while keeping customer funds on their balance sheet. Regional lenders are pursuing a separate network through Cari, C-A-R-I, which was developed with Huntington, First Horizon, MT Bank, KeyBank, and Old National. Old National sounds like a cheap whiskey. Anyway, Cari launched a minimum viable product in March and had attracted more than 30 participating banks by July. Community banks have also formed the DTX Consortium through the Independent Bankers Association of Texas. IBAT said in June that membership had exceeded 50 banks as the group prepared a tokenized deposit pilot. Stablecoin developers are also turning to consortium models. In June, Open Standard named more than 140 payments, banking, technology, and crypto companies in connection with OpenUSD, a dollar-backed stablecoin expected to launch later in 2026. The project plans to offer businesses fee-free minting and redemption while distributing reserve earnings to participating companies. And there you have it. It's going to be nothing. It's going to be a nothing burger. I doubt I will remember this inside of 6 months from now. Let's run the numbers. CNBC futures and commodities. Brent North Sea oil down 0.1% to 88.49 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate is up 1/3 to 82.66. Natural gas is up quite a bit today, 4.69% to the upside, landing it at $2.90 per thousand cubic feet. I wonder what's going on there. Gasoline up 2.4% to $3.33, the magic number per gallon, and Murban crude is down 1.8% to a measly 91.68 a barrel. Metals are doing awful today. Palladium down 0.5%. Gold is down 0.8 to 46.57 and 6 dimes. Platinum is down 0.8%. Silver down 0.8% as well to 68 and 9 cents. Copper down 1.8%. Ag is mostly in the green today. The biggest winner is, wheat, 6.4% to the upside. The biggest loser is my, favorite food in the world, chocolate, 4 1/3 to the downside. Meanwhile, live cattle down almost nothing. It's just sideways. Lean hogs, same thing, only slightly in the green. Feeder cattle up 0.14%. The S&P is sideways. The NASDAQ is sideways. The Dow is actually down almost 1/4 point, and the S&P Mini is up 2/3 of a point. Bitcoin passed through 80,000 like yesterday or the day before. Actually, I guess it was yesterday, it was the day before, and it calmed back down. It is now chilling out at $78,460 a coin. That's a $1.58 trillion market cap. And we can get 17 ounces of shiny metal rocks with our 1 Bitcoin, of which there are 20,075,329.26 of. Fees are nominal today. It's about 45 blocks carrying 84,000 unconfirmed transactions waiting to clear at high priority fees of 3 sats per VByte. Low priorities will get you in at 0.8. Hash rate standing at 881 exahashes per second. That's all the security that I really need. Now, from yesterday's episode of Bitcoin and It's Time for the Children, or rather, it's for the children, I've got Nick Dose with 264 sats says, applause. KT with 123 sats says, dude, I'm a girl. Ew, cooties. Keep the extra sats. You have absolutely provided the value. I use Podverse as my daily driver, but they only support Albi Wallet, and I've never known if boosts get read from other 2.0 platforms. Also, a comment from yesterday about the land of Lincoln. Hold on, I lost my place. Look no further than credit card processors to see that there can be a different rate for cash payment versus cards. I'm sure they could find the same loophole for charging a service fee on BTC payments. Interesting. Credit card processors can be a different rate for cash payments versus cards. Well, that's true. I mean, I've known that for a while. And technically, you're not supposed to be able to do that. And that's not law, right? But there used to be something. Oh yeah, and I think it's actually still in the language. But like, you want to offer Visa and MasterCard, so you basically have to apply for that. The rules definitely used to be, and I think they may actually technically say the same language, but people would follow the rules. Like 10 years ago, where Visa was saying, if you offer Visa, you can't charge any more for your services. You still have to pay 3.2% to us, but you can't tack on an extra fee because you used a credit card. Now that shit's being done everywhere. That shit's being done everywhere. So I don't know if the legal language that the end user license agreement that you have to follow if you get a company's credit card to as a payment processor. I don't know if that language is still there or not. If it is still there, nobody seems to care. Nobody really seems to care because I see it all over the place. Credit card purchases. First of all, anything below, like I've seen it, anything below $8 purchase, you got to use cash. If it's above that, then they tack on 3.5 to, I've seen it all the way up to like 4%, where they're actually making a profit for you using a credit card. Oh, this is why we Bitcoin. That's the weather report. Welcome to part 2 of the news that you can use. Students want crypto classes, but they actually learn on social media, according to an OKX survey. Johan Yoon writing this one for Cointelegraph. While most U.S. college students want schools to teach crypto and blockchain, in the absence of courses, social media remains their leading source of crypto education, according to a study commissioned by crypto exchange OKX. And we already need to pause so that I can say the following. That's really sad. Because generally speaking, social media is 99.99999% shilling you trash, fraud, grift, graft, and shit coins. Learning anything about quote unquote crypto on social media is tantamount to being filled full of shit. Continue. A survey this month found that 90% of students and 87% of parents supported teaching the subjects in college. About 27% of students and 32% of parents said the instruction should be mandatory. Do I need to read you that again? We're talking about crypto and blockchain. 90% of students and 87% of those parents, of those 90% of students, supported teaching the subjects of crypto and blockchain in college. And a third of students and parents said that it should be mandatory. I know I'm me too. I'm wrinkling at the notion of mandatory, but still, that's a hell of a data point. That's a lot farther along than I ever would have thought. That's how entrenched all this stuff is becoming. And it's why it's more important than ever, to make damn sure that Bitcoin is spoken about more than anything else. Anyway, demand appears to outpace formal coursework. A separate 2025 review of 533 U.S. universities with accredited business schools found that about a quarter offered blockchain courses. Among students surveyed by OKX, 33% identified social media or influencers as their most important source of crypto information, nearly 5 times the number who cited schools, teachers, or professors. Crypto platforms and apps were the leading source among parents at 21%. OKX surveyed 500 students and 500 parents through Pollfish, an online platform that distributes surveys to users of third-party mobile apps. Respondents were not recruited from OKX's customer base. OKX did not disclose the survey's weighting, margin of error, or respondents' crypto ownership rates. So that's the little disclaimer there at the end, but still, 500 students and 500 parents. And it makes me wonder, what kind of errors can be introduced if you're not interviewing or questioning the parents of the students that you're questioning? Because there's like 500 students and probably 500 completely different parents that aren't related to the students that they're asking the questions about before. It would be interesting to interview them both, basically to have the student get the questionnaire, and then that question, like the parent version of that questionnaire, goes to the actual student's parents to see if there's any difference in the collation of the data. But that's just the nerdy ass statistician in me that got trained as a scientist when I was in college speaking. Anyway, it's still interesting. There's a high amount in 500. This is 1,000 total people, 500 students, 500 parents. It's a pretty good sample size. It's not something that you sneeze at from a statistically significant, point of view, right? That's quite a bit of data that you can ascertain there. Still, though, being, 90% of students and 87% of parents think this shit should be taught in schools, especially at the university level, I'm actually surprised. But not as surprised as I am about the following. These researchers just shrunk an AI model and somehow made it smarter. Jose Antonio Lanz out of decrypt.co. Hold on for a sec. There's a really weird message on this news story, and I think it's an error from the website itself. So I was about to read it because, I get all, Ron, what's that? Ron Johnson. What's the name of that dude in that movie about the newscaster? You know what I'm talking about. Ron Burgundy. Yeah, I get all Ron Burgundy, and I'm not all that. Sometimes I'm not careful. So anyway, I got confused. A team of researchers just built a smaller, cheaper version of the big AI model. The smaller one turned out to be smarter than the version it was shrunk from. That shouldn't happen. It's like losing muscle and getting stronger at the same time. But a group of multiverse computing, or at multiverse computing, said it did. And the reason says something about how we've been shrinking AI all wrong. Quote, for practitioners, the practical message is that in a distillation-based healing pipeline, the quantization step is not a cost to be minimized, but an additional opportunity for teacher supervision, yielding a model that is simultaneously cheaper to serve, lighter in memory, and at least as accurate as its full precision counterpart, the researchers wrote in a paper published on Friday. Think of an AI model's parameters as a giant wall of knobs, numbers that hold everything it learned. More knobs, smarter model, but heavier to run. OpenAI's GPT-OSS 120B has 120 billion of those knobs. Each one of them costs memory and electricity. To ship AI cheaply, companies start to strip knobs and shrink the survivors. It's like zipping a photo, smaller file, but too much compression and the image blurs, like going from 4K to 720p. Shrink a model too hard, and it gets dumb. Everyone accepted that trade. These researchers went further. They cut GPT-OSS to 60 billion parameters and squeezed each one into a tiny 4-bit slot, the digital equivalent to extreme compression. Normally, that would just gut the model, but these researchers found a way to actually enhance it. In almost all benchmarks used by comparison, the smaller model outperformed the model that was built with full precision. When you shrink a model, you usually fix its mistakes by comparing it to the half-shrunk version, the one with 60 billion knobs and higher precision. The problem is, the halfway model is already a blurry copy of the original, so you're teaching the tiny model to imitate a flawed twin. It can never outgrow that twin. What these researchers refer to as quantization-aware healing changes the target. It points the small model back at the big, uncompressed original and says, copy this one's answers. The little model learns from the master, not the muddied up middle one. On 7 of 9 tests, the 4-bit 60 billion model beat the 60 billion model twin that was supposed to be its better half. The true 120 billion parameter still wins most rounds. Size hasn't totally been abolished, but the diet version cleared a bar nobody thought that it could. Smaller and smarter is a very big deal because AI eats hardware and memory and power. The healed model needs roughly a quarter of the memory and half the knobs of the original. That's the gap between an AI that lives in a data center and one that fits on a decent desktop or eventually your phone. So a model that can produce better results while consuming half the energy means a lot for small labs and local developers. It's also free. The team released the healed Hypernova 60B model as open weights on Hugging Face so anyone can download and run it. That fits a running streak of open models clearing surprising bars. A mysterious free model, OX Alpha, recently beat a Claude system with no known builder behind it. The hype around Alibaba's Qwen 3.8 Flash Next and the wave of fine-tunes that improve small models using reasoning traces from bigger LMs like Fable or Claude Opus. Don't over-rotate, though. The shrink tool that makes the 60B student is proprietary, so the recipe isn't fully open yet, and the team only tested GPT-OSS, not Llama, not Qwen, nor Mistral families of models. So there you go. A shrunk model actually beats the original, kind of, in a way, in a roundabout way. None of this is capped, is what I think we should take away from this. Not that smaller models are going to, from now on, be smarter than the bigger models. Everything's going to shrink. We're back to the, wow, we're going to be finding efficiencies everywhere because it's new tech. There's a lot of dirt in new tech. You know, like if you cast a gear for an engine out of cast iron and you got like a sand mold, man, before you even think about putting that gear into an engine, that shit's got to be deburred, cleaned up, ground down, polished again, checked, rechecked. And then you can actually put it in an engine and expect it to perform. But if you were to put that thing into an engine right after you cast it out of sand, you're probably going to destroy the engine. Because all this shit needs to be cleaned up. That's where we are. We're at the cleanup phase of all this stuff. I mean, the basic bricks, we already know how to build this. That was fast. That took all of, let's see, I think I first encountered AI when I was still working at tech. So let's say a decade. A decade of AI. And we pretty much know how to build the models. Now, that doesn't mean that something new under the sun won't appear, but for right now, we basically know how to build the models. Now we're in cleanup, and we're able to clean up a lot of this stuff. So what I would expect is like the power of something like Fable 5 to be able to operate on your phone by the end of next year. No shit. That's where I'm going. I mean, it's highly non-conservative estimate from me. But that's where I think it's going to be. This shit's going to get real scary real quick. And I hope that the Human Rights Foundation has their brains wrapped around it. Meanwhile, the same said Human Rights Foundation has announced support for 16 projects worldwide. Bitcoin Magazine, Matthew DeSalvo gives us the list. The Human Rights Foundation has announced support for more projects around the globe, this time giving 500 million Satoshis, worth $396,000 at today's prices, in grants to 16 projects in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. First up, out of Bitcoin payments, BitSpenda gets a prize. Across Africa, cross-border money transfers are often slow, costly, and rely on intermediaries. BitSpenda, a mobile money to Bitcoin bridge, offers a non-custodial account-free tool that lets people in Nigeria, Kenya, Cameroon, Uganda, and Ghana send Bitcoin from a Lightning wallet directly to a mobile money account. And they now have HRF support. Second up, Project Island Resilience. In parts of the Caribbean, power outages and authoritarian repression can cut people off from both communication and access to money. Project Island Resilience builds on Flash, a Bitcoin and Lightning wallet created by Jamaican developer Dread. After Hurricane Melissa devastated Jamaica, the app raised and distributed more than $10,000 in Bitcoin within 72 hours. Now the project plans to add offline payments to Flash using Bluetooth, near-field communication, and eCash. And they get a prize. Bitsized, or rather, not bit-sized, Bitst. I like that. That's a good name, Bitst, B-I-T-Z-E-D. In Zambia, mobile money is commonly used, but buying Bitcoin still requires banks or centralized exchanges that maintain identity records and control individual assets. Bitst, created by Bitcoin educator Humphrey, is an account-free platform that connects mobile money networks directly to Bitcoin in Zambia. Users can buy Bitcoin using existing mobile money accounts and receive it straight to their own Lightning wallet, and they get a prize. Then there's the Bitcoin kernel. This is out of Bitcoin development. And the Bitcoin kernel is a software project pulling the core security and transaction rules directly from Bitcoin's original code and turning them into reusable software modules. And they're being supported. A node in every wallet, U-Tree-XO wallet integrations. Floristra, that's who this is talking about, is a lightweight version of a Bitcoin node that embeds directly into wallet apps, reducing the storage needed to verify Bitcoin transactions, and they get a prize. BDK Dart is a toolkit that gives developers pre-built Bitcoin wallet building blocks for Flutter, a popular framework to build apps on any device, and they get a prize. Wallet Scrutiny is a project that audits Bitcoin wallets for transparency and verifies that the distributed software matches its source code, and they get a prize. And here's my favorite part of this list. Nostr. Vector is an open source messenger built on Nostr. HRF's grant will help Vector launch on iOS and desktop, release encrypted voice and video calls, and provide journalists, activists, and whistleblowers with a stable, censorship-resistant tool to communicate and coordinate without fear of being tracked or silenced by dictators. Still under Nostr, Flotilla Chat gets a prize, and they're built by the Nostr client Coracle. Oh, this Coracle is this is my friend. This is my buddy. This is my good friend, man. I love this guy. I've known him for, actually at this point, I've known him for a couple of years. But Flotilla Chat, built by the Nostr client Coracle, is a Discord-style platform built on Nostr that separates the user's identity from the hosting provider. On Flotilla, organizers control their own infrastructure. Meanwhile, members keep portable identities across the network, reducing censorship risks, and HRF's funding will help develop features such as role-based account control, voice chat, and Bitcoin native funding tools to make online assembly more resilient under autocratic regimes. Congratulations to Coracle and Flotilla on the HRF grant. Open Alert is created by software developers Fernando Diego Pergolini and Jorge Carlos Franco. It's an alternative notification platform to deliver urgent alerts. Its main layer uses the decentralized Nostr network to issue alerts via primary anonymous text and audio messages with end-to-end encryption. Nice. OX Chat Activists and journalists need private, reliable communication tools. OX Chat, created by software developer Water783, is a messaging app built on Nostr that offers fully encrypted chat, file transfer, voice, and video calls. It features an integration with Tor, a technology that masks internet traffic. It also includes a built-in Cashew wallet for private Bitcoin payments, and they get a prize. Out of Bitcoin mining, 256 Foundation gets a prize. For Bitcoin education, My First Bitcoin gets a prize. Agora, which is Bitcoin Lightning activation and a civic infrastructure pilot, they get a prize. They are out of Venezuela. HODL, standing for Hands-On Design Lab, gets a prize. Hack for Freedom, they get a prize. So this is quite the list, but the thing that I'm most excited about is that Human Rights Foundation is not leaving Nostr. I'm not leaving. I'm not fucking leaving. And neither am I. I'm not leaving Nostr. Some of you may have noticed that I don't post to Nostr all that much anymore. Guys, I haven't been posting to a lot of stuff anymore because Nostr is the thing that this sounds like an oxymoron, but Nostr is the thing that broke my social media habit. It did. And you may say that doesn't bode well for Nostr. No, it doesn't bode well for social media. But Nostr isn't about social media. It was just the low-hanging fruit that we started developing for. Because the Nostr messaging protocol can do anything. Is it a digital message? Is it information being sent digitally? Do you need identity as to who sent it? Do you need an identity as to who you want to send it to? Or do you have identities as a list of people that you don't mind reading it, or that you do mind if they read it so that they shouldn't be able to read it? Well, then Nostr is right for you. And honestly, that little list that I just covered, dude, that takes into consideration a lot of shit. Right? And Nostr is fully formed as a protocol and being able to do that. It's up to the developers to be able to, like, who was that? It was Michelangelo. Yeah, Michelangelo as a sculptor. He did a lot of different things, but as a sculptor, he was the one that said, no, the statue's already in the granite. It's already there. I can already see it. I just have to pull it out. Nostr's the same way. Nostr's a block of granite. It's up to the developers, the sculptors, to be able to pull out the form that they see. You can do anything you want to with Nostr as long as it's digital and it has a message and identity around it. Yeah. And honestly, you can lose the identity and just use the Nostr protocol. So it's actually very, very flexible, right? But as far as social media is concerned, people are leaving Nostr. Yeah, people are not all that interested in Twitter anymore. Facebook isn't exactly like it used to be. This is a trend, and if you're not catching this trend, I don't know where you've been at, because they've been talking about this shit in the news. There's a lot of people are starting to get bored with social media. You know, it's been around since MySpace. And I think people are kind of getting a little bored with it. So it's going to morph into something else. That's why I was saying either Monday or late last week that what I'm waiting for is that all major media companies essentially become cannibalized by social media, and there's going to be some kind of an abominable birth that forms out of that union, that unholy union that creates the next phase, right? Where the talking heads will basically be in something that we used to think of as social media, but it's all going to be different. And that's why the consideration of Human Rights Foundation for not this many Nostr grants, because there's 4: Vector Privacy, Flotilla Chat, Open Alert, and OX Chat. The fact that HRF is funding 4 Nostr projects separately that don't have any connection with each other is amazing. And it shows that the Human Rights Foundation understands the power and the potential behind the Nostr protocol beyond social media. Oh man, nobody likes Nostr. Look, it's like nobody's over there on Primal anymore. Dude, Primal's not Nostr. Nostr is a protocol. Primal is a platform. I use Ditto personally. There's not a whole lot of stuff going on. Well, there is actually quite a bit of stuff going on there, but less than there was, and everybody's calling for Nostr's death. Did you ever think it has nothing to do with Nostr? It has everything to do with the fact that maybe people are just getting tired of social media, that there's too much TikTok, there's too much Twitter, there's too much X, there's too much Facebook, there's too much this, there's too much that. Oh man, I'm going to be an Instagram star. Yeah, I'd probably look for something else, man. Because I don't think Instagram is doing all that well either. Sure, there are some people that are still pulling down millions of dollars, at least if you believe what they say. I'm not sure I do, but they certainly believe it and looks like they have it. But then again, I can go take a picture of myself in front of any Ferrari I see and say, hey, look at my new ride, bro. I'm an Instagram. But you don't know if it's actually mine. I didn't show you the paperwork for it that says, yeah, it's my car. I own it. I bought it. I'm just standing in front of it taking a picture. I can go to a jewelry store, try on a $50,000 ring or something like that, take a picture of it and say, my life is so much better than yours. So two things are happening concurrently. One, I'm continuously making people feel like shit about their lives when they shouldn't. And two, I'm lying about it. And I think people are starting to, finally catch on in droves. And they're kind of bailing. But still, Nostr is a protocol that lies underneath the social media aspect that people think of Nostr as. And that's the wrong way to look at it. Like, for instance, I'm not sure you can retool the protocol underneath X to do anything other than what it already does. Nostr, as a generalized protocol, dude, anybody can build on it. And it doesn't have to have anything to do with social media. And I want you to really keep that in mind the next time you think or somebody tells you that they think that Nostr is dead. No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it is not. All right, that's it for this Wednesday show of Bitcoin and with me, your host, David Bennett. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you on the other side. This has been Bitcoin and I'm your host, David Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and hope to see you again real soon. Have a great day.